What is your focus right now? Sorry about that. I had a bit of tech difficulties. Oh, lovely to see Raymond, another member of the club. John here, another member of the club. What are people's focuses right now? Looks like we're starting to settle in on I want to get more leads and I want to grow my firm. That's good. That's good. Let's just give it 3, 2, 1, end poll. Isn't it lovely when it always goes to the middle? Let's just share the results, which goes right back to the middle. So a lot of us, 40%, just under, want to grow my firm, get more leads through the door. Let's stop sharing that. And you know what? I made a slight mistake. I should have actually asked the other, what is your focus right now? Let's try the next one. This is the one that I should have run with this webinar. It's good to see that I'm on top form, isn't it? Let's see where we are. Given that we're talking about overwhelm, I'm expecting a lot of people to tell me that they're wanting to get things back under control. Lovely to see. I've got one more poll coming and that's it. And then I'm pretty much done with the polls, and me and technology can go and hide in the small corner and go, no, we don't like this. Let's see if we can get a few more of you. But 3, 2, 1, let's end my poll. Let's share the results. What we can see here is that we've got, funnily enough, it's all about getting back under control, and 63% of you have said we need to get back under control, which is great. And 42% want to grow your firm. That is brilliant. Let's stop sharing. I got one more poll. These are, let's go back. One more poll. No, that wasn't the one I wanted. This is the one I want. Let's go back. Which one am I sharing? Overwhelm. I'm going to stop that poll. Let me go. This is the one I want. They've changed all the polls. It's not as easy just to pick them up. Right. This is the one I wanted to do now. Which one of these can you relate to? Hoping this is working. Nobody's participating. I think I've people are coming in because they're reading it. I thought I'd broken the polls. You can see I'm having a moment today. There's a lot of you that are going, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. That seems to be the biggest one. That you're stuck. You can't go back, but you can't seem to get the business to go forward. That is so common with growing businesses. Interestingly, we're about how to feel back in control and not have to rush stuff. That's fine. That's the most at the moment. But a lot of us are tired here. A lot of tired people want to be back in control. There's a backlog of work, but actually the biggest thing is I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck seems to be the biggest thing there. I'm going to see if I'm going to end the poll and share the results. I think that is fascinating. I'm going to go away from polls now. But if you look at the results, the biggest one was I'm stuck. 41% of you, I can't go back, but I can't seem to get the business to go forward. And very often, this is a structural issue while we're in there, which I'm going to cover. We've got a lot with backlog of work. That can be to do with resourcing. Want to feel in control. That can do with resourcing and our mindset. And some of you are saying tired and exhausted, and that's often because we've been working so much. Right, into the chat box. Before I get going properly, what do you want me to answer on this webinar? Put it into the chat box. Let's get typing. Let's get clicking before I get going properly. What do you want me to answer on this webinar? What would be of value for you? into the chat box. What do you want to get out of this webinar? For those of you who was your first time with me, you're now realizing I want you to talk to me, chat to me, tell me what's going on. Oh, Deb, but that's so common, isn't it? How do we manage client expectations when everything is due at the same time? Natalie, you need to have a chat with Mario. Stop to get unstuck and drive your business to the next level without burning yourself out. Raymond wants to convert leads to engagements. Probably not going to deal with that, Raymond, on this call. But absolutely. Simon wants to clear the backlog of tasks you can't delegate. I will pick all of these things up, by the way. Taz wants to empower the team to handle work without me. That's brilliant. Alison wants all of the above. Excellent. Right. Let's go and look what we're going to be dealing with. Keith, you will get practical tips. I promise you, you will get practical tips. What are you going to learn by the end of this webinar? We're going to look at the 5 leadership priorities, and why we find ourselves in this position is often the business has moved forward and it needs different things from us, but actually we haven't moved with it. And as a result, that's often why we're exhausted, that we don't have control of our time. Catherine, I will give you some hacks to get practice admin CPD work done and not distracted by client work. And John, yeah, I will try and give you some help to switch off for work and have more family time. I'm going to help you regain clarity of your priorities, even if it does feel like 1 step forward and 3 steps back. And for most of us, when we're in this 1 step forward, 3 steps back situation, which nearly 10% of you said on this one, it was more than 10%, it was 40%. This is often because we don't have a growth plan, because we don't know what our priorities are. We're too in that short term. We're also going to make time to work on the business and how we're going to do that. How am I going to get those practice admin, that CPD done, but balance it all with client work, as you're telling me. We're going to get that done. What else are we going to do? You're going to get some mindset shifts that you're going to need to make. Alison, I will put you in as a panelist because I think you want to be a panelist. You're with me now, Alison, as a panelist, if you want to accept. Always nice when my team tell me they're here. We're going to look at the mindset shifts you're going to need to make to stop being a bottleneck. And then finally, we're going to look at how to get your team to step up and take the initiative. And if I remember rightly, Taz, that was exactly what you wanted, how to get the team to take and step up. Right. What are we going to share content? The first thing we're going to look at is this a short-term blip or a long-term issue? Because how we deal with this is going to be different based on what that is. We're going to look at getting a fit. Alison is actually Matt. Hello, Matt, not Alison. Good to know that it's Matt, not Alison. Great to have Matt. Matt's our relationship manager. Great to have him with us. We're going to look very often, why we have a lot of these problems is our structure is not right. It's one of the big things that is wrong. The structure of our firm. We've grown too fast and we've got issues with that. We're then going to look at what's your priority. And this is about how do you get clarity. But you're going to have to take some mindset shifts. And then finally, we're going to look at how do you get out of overwhelm. But let's start with, is this a blip? Now, when we come to being overwhelmed, it can either be a fairly normal short-term blip. We're having that busy day. We've got back-to-back meetings. That was me on Tuesday. Or it can be your normal, i.e. you're finding yourself working the long hours. You're not getting time with family. Client work's taking over. And this has become your normal. This isn't helpful. And this needs more investigation. So what happens if overwhelm has become your status quo? In this instance, it's normally because you've got too much to do. That can be both for stuff in and out of work. Family time just take up. We've got practice admin, we've got CPD, we've got client work. Now, too much to do is not a static level. Everyone has a different threshold for when coping moves into overwhelmed. And I want to put this right now, just because another accountant can cope with your volume of work and demands, it doesn't mean that you should be able to cope. Right, let's go and look at this poll. If I can find the poll where I've hidden it. Let me go and have a look at the polls. And let's run that poll that I accidentally rang at the wrong time. Where you've hidden the poll on your desk? it is here somewhere. Oh, there we are. Let me find the poll. How have you got yourself into this situation? Relaunch poll. There we are. Yep, relaunch. Let me actually properly do this. Have you got yourself into this situation? So there should be a poll up on screen and everybody's reading it. What are the reasons for you? And some interesting answers coming. People are thinking about it, looking at it. Matt, I wonder what you think is going to be the top one. Probably can't see though as a panelist. You're on mute, Matt.
No.
All right, you're back in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you see me?
I can see. Well, I'm not sure because we're doing the poll, but I can
Yeah.
see you now on camera, so I can see you. We got. Let's see if we're going to get a little bit more than 63% participating. Let's see if we can get the last couple in. 3, click your buttons. 2, click that button. I'd love to get 70%. Let's end that poll now, and let's share the results. Now, interestingly, the biggest one is I say yes too often. And normally, because part of it is we are great at being with clients because we want to help people. But the problem is we then say yes too often. And often we say yes too often is because we don't know what's urgent and important. And as a result, we say yes too often for things that we shouldn't be doing. And that's why we start to get overwhelmed. So it all comes down to, do I have the clarity? And as you can see, there's a lot of us that don't have that clarity. And it comes back a little bit of a skill. I'm not good at setting healthy boundaries. And often with what we're doing, Matt, isn't it? When we say, by the way, others don't do it like that. By the way, are you running a holiday camp? People suddenly go, whoa, actually, I need to get this done. Got a lot, need more discipline, and that's accountability coaching really, really helps, particularly when you're busy. Need to be in control, could be better at delegating work. But it's mostly about this. I don't know what my priorities are, so I let others dictate that for me. And I think that's really, really interesting there. Let's move this off the screen. So that's there's a bit of tough love coming here. You've got to take some responsibility for this stuff. But let's look at why, and some of you might not realize you're in this situation. Is your firm structured correctly? When your firm started, it was probably just you. That's you. Imagine you're in the center of the screen there. And your firm was beautiful. It was perfect. And as a result, clients liked you and you started to get a bit more work. So you added a team member or two and they reported into you, but everything still goes through you. But because you're so small, everything can. Your 2 team members go through you. They don't often talk to each other, we find. And by the way, when I say everything goes through you, suppliers, clients, team meetings. And I don't know why, but there's a sudden whoosh that suddenly goes, you've got 2-ish people, then suddenly you find yourself almost like this. Where you said before you realized it, you've grown massively. It's suddenly over 5 people, and you are at the center of your firm's world. Everything needs to go through you. Team members are not great at talking to each other. It all goes through you. Suppliers and clients really only want to work with you, and it's now unmanageable. Just put in the chat box if you can relate to this. Maybe it's your current reality, or maybe you've been there. Just put in the chat box. Say yes if you can relate to this. Everything seems to be going through. Absolutely, Taz. Yeah. This is painful, this stage. I had to have somebody pointed out to me why it was a problem. We've got a lot. We've got the Keiths, we've got the Natalies, we've got the Colettes, we've got the Samuels. There's a lot of people going, hang on a minute. This is going through us. And we suddenly seem to go very, very quickly through there. So what can cause this problem? How do we get there? First thing is rapid growth. And I see this happen a lot when people acquire a practice or a book of business. Suddenly, whoa, everything is going through me. What used to work for 100K does not suddenly work when you've got 200K sitting there of business to be done. Um, we see this often when you start, money is tight, so you often hire on the cheap. So you have that mixture of trainees and part-timers, or you outsource, which buys you time, but you're still having to make all the decisions. That means everything's still going through you, or you can't give stuff to your team because they're not able to do the stuff, or you don't trust that it will be done. And you still got to make all the decisions. This is the problem. Can you feel that we're getting overwhelmed here? Next thing, it might be our need for control is such everything needs to go through me. And this is one where we have to have a reality check. But also this is big one. And I think it's the accountant's mentality that because we've got so much that happens on a regular cycle, we tend to just take it day by day. As a result, we're only thinking about the short term. Now it's because we're busy, we're firefighting. As a result, it seems a bit churlish to be thinking about the mid and the long term. And so it means that we're often too late to hire and change stuff. Just put in the chat box, who now thinks that actually they might have got a bit of a structure problem? People only talking to us, not enough team members talking to each other, clients only going through us, suppliers only go through us. If you think you've got a structure problem, just put structure in there as a comment. If you think structure is part of your issue, just put a comment. If you don't feel you can delegate because you haven't got the right people, that's a structural problem. Yeah, Simon thinks it's a structural problem. And we often don't realize it until somebody like me points it out. I'm nice like that, aren't I, Matt?
You, you're very good at that.
Yes, to be fair, you pointed that out to me yesterday about something. So we're about even for this. But
Yeah.
Keith said structure, Taz has said structure, absolutely. So where do we want to get to? We want to get it so we've built a leadership team. So we've got a number of people that report directly into us that can run the business for us and do most of what we're doing. That's why I've got Matt here, key member of my leadership team. We also need to make sure that beneath them, people are talking to them and people are talking to each other, because very often we don't have the right people talking to each other, which means everything goes through us and we have a problem. We've also got to be disciplined here, get the practice management system used daily. And we often don't have that. We don't have that practice management system used daily. So we don't have a real clarity over who does what, who's responsible, accountable, who needs to be talked about. We don't have checklists for each key process. And we haven't built our processes so that we're no longer the center of everything. We haven't actually thought, hang on a minute. We do that. And you know what, Jeremy, if you've not got enough dollars to hire right, you've not got enough money to hire right, there's two things. You're either efficiency is a problem or you're underpricing. It's one of those two. And actually, Jeremy, when we've worked with people, we know that often it's both of that. So we've got to get our practice management system coded up right. We've got to get our processes so we know who's doing what. And there was some people that said, how do I empower my team? A good way of empowering the team is to make sure that there are the key processes, that these are sitting in the right place, that we know where stuff is happening. And often, that's better. All right, I'm just playing with my screen. Often that empowering the team really starts with, have I told them what they need to do and how to do it? And is it coded into our systems? Now, at some point, you do need to do that expensive hire, particularly if you're growing quickly. You can't just give your good junior 5 more years experience. They've got to have that experience. Now, a good way to find the motivation to do this and stop the fear is have a plan in place so you can see the payoff of this investment. Work with a good recruiter. Melissa at the Accountants Recruiter, our sister company, is a brilliant. She hired you, didn't she, Matt?
She did at that. Yep.
Yeah. If you would like a little bit of help with recruitment right now, just put in the chat box recruitment, and Matt will make sure that you've got an intro to Melissa. Our members get typically a 5% reduction on costs, but regardless, anybody that uses the Accountants Recruiter, you can pay for the person over 12 months, so you can actually get a payoff. another way to stop the fear of, oh, is this good? This expensive hire not going to work out. Have really good job descriptions. What are they there to do? And club members who's on the line, this stuff is in the resources for you. All of those job descriptions. The next thing is, if you've got any of our members listening, just looking at a few of you. So that will be, who am I looking at? John, you've heard me talk about this. Natalie's heard me talk about this. A few of you have heard me talk about this. Use the rhythm team meetings. So these are standard meetings that happen in a rhythm that makes sure that you're doing the right things, talking about the right things. This is a great way of getting your team to be empowered and step up. So there's the daily operational huddle, which is in those distinct teams where you go, this is what we're doing today, this is what I'm going to get out the door. Now, we do that weekly as a team, just the way we work, and it works really, really well for us. Then you want a weekly leadership team meeting to make sure your growth plan and the work and operational stuff is happening. So Catherine, you wanted a hack to kind of keep things in place. This is about called your plan and putting diary in your plan. The next thing is refocus your plans every month to ensure that you have that short and the medium term in view. And as John said, who's had the pleasure of working with me now for 6 months now, isn't it, John? And we've got you mostly back under control, and you do the daily huddle and it works well. While I take a quick swig into the chat box, what's one thing that's really resonated with you so far? One thing that's really resonated with you so far. What's one thing that's resonated so far? And I'm sorry if it's cut the top of my head off. So Natalie's gone, not hiring, cheaping out on hires. Yeah, you did get very much burnt on that one. Simon needs to hire an experienced accountant. Look, Simon, we can introduce you to Melissa. She's brilliant. Tamsin wants to put in the rhythm team meetings. Colette needs the extra processes checklist. Adrian, I know you've got quite a big firm there, but knowing who's doing what, that's your practice management system, your huddles, and Keith needs better communication with staff. Right, let's go back to let's put me in there because I like to be in there. Right. Do you have clarity on your priorities? Now, as you've seen, a lot of this overwhelm has come from, do I have clarity on my priorities? Here's the thing. There's always stuff to do when you're a growing business. Always stuff to do. It's part of the territory. What happens is we let the important but not urgent stuff slip down our priority list. That's why the CPD always seems to be done at the last minute. And when we ignore this stuff, such as sorting out our practice management system and workflow, we find that we're overwhelmed. So what is this urgent stuff? This important but not urgent until it becomes urgent. So planning and review time. Matt, it made a huge difference in our business, didn't it? That when we got together once a week on a Monday and really talked through everything, it made a massive difference to our priorities.
Huge difference because it gave clarity to everybody involved.
Yep. Admin for our emails. Have a time slot for this. Catherine, you wanted a hack. People wanted hacks for this. Put in this. Put it in your diary. Make sure it gets done. We often stop checking that stuff is being done. We go, yeah, that is happening, and we don't check, and then that blows up. So we do need to make sure the review stuff is happening. When you're firefighting, there is never the time to update the systems and process for better efficiency, and this is going to help you get back in control. Simon, look, the fact you've been on with us for half an hour, that's great. I'll get Matt to make contact with you, give you a bit of an update what we talked about. Hopefully we can speak soon. Yeah, we stopped doing credit control, and you're telling me I'm an accountant, I do this stuff, but you know what? When you don't have that monthly billing, when you get busy, that credit control slips. We've seen it. But the big thing that often slips is the people management tasks, such as setting targets and objectives. You see, because when we're just two of us, it seems a bit churlish to have objectives and KPIs and targets. That's for bigger businesses. But when do we become a bigger business? And very often it's suddenly when you're at 3, 4, 5 team members. And this is when you really, really do need to have those targets set in. That is one of the answers of how you empower your team. And if we ignore all of this stuff that I've just read out, this is when we get into that firefighting mode. When did you, and I'm going to see if, when did you last look at your growth plan? This will be an interesting answer, won't it? We've already got a few people going, what plan? I'm hoping that within the last 30 days, we're all our club members when they're answering, when they looked at their last plan. Let's see if I can get a few more. Three. Let's see if we can get the last one. Couple. 3, 2. Jeremy, you have heard me talking about this stuff for years now. You know you need a plan, Jeremy, in the nicest possible word. Let's end the poll. Let's share the results. And interesting, there's half of us that don't have a plan. So is it any wonder that we're into firefighting, we're ignoring the highly important but not necessarily urgent stuff, and we're letting client work subsume us because we're not looking forward. We're not sorting out our resourcing. We're not sorting out our structure. We're not sorting out our review time. We're not sorting out our processes. And this is so, so important. And by the way, if you looked at your growth plan over a year ago, that's not a growth plan. That's something you put in your desk drawer. You know, if your growth plan is doing what it needs to do, you should be looking at it monthly and taking decisions monthly. Here in the club, we look at ours weekly. As a leadership team, we look at ours weekly. Right. I think we've realized that most of us are not clear on our priorities, because how can we be if we don't have a growth plan? You know, of course, saying no, deciding what you should focus on, it's rather tricky, isn't it, Matt? If you're not sure what your top priorities are. Matt, do you want to just put your link into the chat box for everybody that's going, actually, I really need to start with my growth plan, so that they can book a call with you and start having that conversation. It's the way I want to put it is, it's like being at a cinema with a massive pick and mix stand if you don't actually have your focus sorted, because everything looks template, everything looks tempting. But if you haven't figured out whether you want that fizzy cola, that's my favorite, or a bag of sour cherries, all you get is an upset tummy and a sugar rush. But what you don't do is really move forward. And this is where working with one of our growth experts helps. And, you know, we've got a number of members on the call. If you feel able, you know, just tell people what it's like working with your growth expert. Because I know we've got people working with me. We've got people working with Mario on the call. Who else have we got on the call? We've got John, we've got Natalie. We've got two. If the two of you feel able to, yeah, what's it like working with a growth expert? Do they keep you focused? Our growth experts, they give you the time out to reflect on what's important to you. John has just said yes. Yeah, absolutely, John. We had a quick call yesterday, didn't we? Because you wanted some extra help. The clock wasn't ticking and we sorted out a couple of questions. And then Natalie said, Mario definitely helps me to focus and helps hold me accountable. Mario's great at that, isn't he, Natalie? But he's quite nice with it as well. You know, those, you know, with the growth experts, they give you that moment to pause. You know, people wanted a key of how do I get back under control? You know, when it's really overwhelming, that pause is so important. And you forced us to pause, didn't you, yesterday, Matt, when you spoke with me and Alison and said, we need to sort some stuff out. And we did, and that really helped. But actually, they help align your intention with your attention. And I'm going to come on to this shortly, but they keep you honest to that growth plan. And then every member of the club revisits their growth plan with our relationship manager, who's here, Matt, every 3 months. And also there's time out for members every fortnight with our AGC 100, our AGC 500 and AGC 1000 groups. Here's part of the problem though, and as I've mentioned, we often don't recognize that as our firm grows, our role changes. And what got us here is not going to get us there. And if you behave in the same way as if you were, you'll shortly find yourselves overwhelmed in problems. Because if you don't, in that 50 to 250, start delegating, sorting out your processes, getting back in control, you are going to be overwhelmed all the time. And you're not going to have that firm foundation then to move to that 250 to 500,000, where actually it is a little bit more of the same. How do I get the leadership team in? How do I get that structure right? And then 500,000 to 1 million is all about performance management and talent. It really is all about that. So what mindset shifts do we need to take? I think we've all learned that we've got to say no. Imagine you're an all you can eat buffet. Oh, there's a bit of that, and there's a bit of this, and there's a bit of that, and I can go and refill it. But there comes a point where even your teenage son is full up, isn't there? There comes a point where the dustbin that is your teenage son gets full up, doesn't he, Matt?
Allegedly.
Yeah, and it won't be for long, but it says there is a point that he sits there and go,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
full.
there is. I can't
Yeah,
do any more.
yeah. But if you keep on eating, all you get is a stomachache. And I want you to take that into the amount of yeses you say. You're at an all-you-can-eat buffet with a million things you can say yes to. There's all the client stuff, there's all the people stuff. But if you keep on saying yes, you're going to get that nasty stomachache. There comes a point when you have to say no more. But the problem is we're not good at saying no more, particularly if the person asking is a client. We're often being conditioned that we always need to say yes to a client request, when actually we need to be comfortable with saying no, not yet. There's a fee with that. Can one of my team will do that for you. Key thing here is if you're going to get over that overwhelm, you've got to learn to say no. You've got to know what your priorities are so you can do that. This is a big, big one here. Nobody's going to come and save you. And you've heard this, Matt. It's always easy to blame other people. But if you're going to get out of overwhelm, you've got to take responsibility for your situation. No one is going to come in and save you, but we often blame shift, and we say things like, my clients are too needy. My team won't step up. It's just busy season, but it's been busy season for 6 months. My clients won't pay that fee. You know what? With all of this stuff, you have to take some responsibility. Nobody's going to come and save you. And the medium term is absolutely as important as the short term. And I've said this already on this call, but people get overwhelmed because they're too focused on the day-to-day. They lose sight of the medium term. As a result, things just go, oh, I won a lot of work I needed to have hired 3 months ago. And if you're going to avoid overwhelm, you've got to be looking ahead and planning. These are always the first things that go when you're busy. That's why your growth plan, the capacity plan, the operational plans are so important. And that's why you and I, Matt, are a stock record, aren't we? Do you have a growth plan? Are you looking at it at least monthly? Are you diarising the tasks from the growth plan into your calendar?
Yeah, and there's always the situation you come across when you speak to somebody fresh on this. It's a self-perpetuating situation because they get into an endless cycle of it going round and round and round
Yep.
because it's a catch-22.
Yep. If you're sitting here going, yeah, I really do need to do that. You know what? Matt, can you put the link again?
Yeah.
Now, the next thing is you've got to set expectations, but you've got to keep to them. And often we try and set them with clients, but then we don't keep to them. So we might as well have not set them. You can say no to a client. You don't need every client. And it is okay to tell a client that you won't get to their request today or tomorrow. And if a client is late with their information, you can change when the work gets done by. And if the client has been late in sending the information, it is okay to tell them they'll incur a penalty. If you've given them enough reminders and they have been late, it is okay for these things. A big, big thing is you need zero tolerance for these poor behaviors, both within your firm and your clients. And the best way to see it is your culture is best viewed as the everyday stuff that is viewed as normal. But it's also the worst behavior you will tolerate. And the moment you let something go, normally because you're too busy, or you're scared of the consequences, you give the message that it's okay. So some of you wanted your team to step up, you wanted to empower them. Are you using a coaching approach? Are you actually going, I'd like you to do this. Can we do this differently? And the more that, I'm not saying that you go into, this really horrible, negative, shouty monster. No, you can do this politely and carefully, but it is about going, saying, no, that's not how we do it, and sticking to that. And, we ask, a lot of you ask, how do I empower my team? How do I get my team to step up? But if you rush in and save a team member, if you take stuff over when a team member is struggling, you're setting a precedent that it's all right. Every time it's hard, Matt can give stuff to me. I'll just do it. That is not going to help my level of overwhelm. And actually, this is where you need to spend time with them doing it together. Now, there might be a moment in time where a team member is just so overwhelmed, they've come a backlog, they don't know where to get started. Yeah, go in and sort it out there, get a clean sheet of paper, and then work with the team member on good behaviors coming after that. So, how do you get yourself out of overwhelm? What is it you need to do? So I asked a group of club members what were their tips for helping each other focus. And it was actually a member who wanted to get a client portfolio analysis done. It was a big task and it wasn't happening. They'd diarised it, it still wasn't happening. And when we went around the room, there was a range of helpful and supportive answers. But one person really stuck out. See, if I don't think this person is on the this person is on the call. It was a brilliant answer, but they were the really organized type. They did the daily planning. They had the to-do list that drove their activity. They color coded their to-do list into work, family, and personal. And I don't know about everybody else, but I was just going, wow, I wish I was like them. But most of us are not at that level of organized, and we're probably never going to be. So this means that we've got to find something that works for us. We've got, when you're overwhelmed, you need to look at your tendencies. Do you find it helpful to talk things through? Are you more of a brainstorm everyone onto a big list? When I'm overwhelmed, I go, Alison, can I just talk at you? And we brainstorm it and we organize it and sort of whatever. Do you get satisfaction from crossing things off a list? Does a long to-do list make you feel really organized, or does it overwhelm you with everything that needs to be done? What is your tendency? How do you work best? But remember, nobody's going to save you. I want you to imagine that you're just juggling loads of balls. That's a bit like feeling overwhelmed, isn't it? Because you're like, whoa, I've got to keep catching them. And if one drops, and self-care is like putting some of those balls down for a breather. You can actually put them down and you can take a moment. You don't have to keep them all up in the air. And by looking after yourself, whether that's that decent night's sleep, I had a great one last night, Matt. I woke up feeling really great as a result. Whether it's fueling yourself with some healthy food, doing something you enjoy, what you're basically doing is giving yourself energy and focus for ahead. It gives you the discipline to make the change. The more chilled and recharged you are, the easier it is to keep all the balls in the air and make the necessary changes. Now, next thing to do is start with your growth plan. Everything starts with knowing what your priorities are. Otherwise, everything is important, everything is urgent, everything is overwhelming you. Only then can you make sure that the important and urgent stuff gets done. That's why the first thing you do when you join the club is they talk with you, Matt, don't they?
They do.
And you're likely then to sit down and put together a growth plan with Matt and your growth expert. The next thing is lock in this planning and review time. Put it in your diary, stick to it. And Catherine, you wanted a hack. How do I get my CPD? How do I get my admin done? Put it in there. Put it in a day where you're normally energized. Put it in a time where you're not tired, and put it in. Other thing is reward yourself. So, Catherine, I'm 2 weeks into a 4-week thing to do my weekly planning on a Sunday evening. If I do it every week for 4 weeks, I am treating myself and I'm buying myself a new NutriBullet because that works for me. So what you're doing is, until you've got the habit formed, give yourself little rewards for when you're doing the right behaviors. And I know our members love the rhythm meetings. This is what keeps them sane, and so they know what people are doing. Big one. You've got to match your diary to your priorities. So I've got a big project with QuickBooks that goes live in 3 weeks. We are talking every week, the team, to deliver that, to keep us on track, because it's that important. So we've matched the diary to our importance, our priority. But often we get overwhelmed because we're doing the previous job, and the firm now requires us to move into a new role with different responsibilities. Remember this? We go back, different responsibilities, different focuses. So we've got to make sure our diary matches that. If you now really need to get the most out of your team, how do you make sure that there's time with your team individually and together? And a good way to make the shift and keep what is important is the default diary. Our growth experts will help you set that up. But also the coaching accountability calls. It just grounds people. Right. If you were to summarize this, what would you summarize? What would you summarize in the chat box? What would your summary be? Pop it in the chat box. Everyone's thinking, Matt.
Well, they're very shy.
Absolutely, Colette. Planning and organization is key, but you've got to have two things. What are my priorities first and foremost? And then how am I going to make sure my diary matches that? So I've got the planning. Jeremy, having a strong yes. So the growth plan, clarity of priorities makes it easy to say no. Absolutely. Tamsin, focus more on the short term. Get your priorities straight. Absolutely. Raymond, priorities. Raymond, you do this really well. Adrian, great to have a call with you at some point. See how you're doing. Lovely to catch up. So for you, it's focus on your priorities. Keith, lift my head and get busy planning. Keith, you know where we are. We can help with that. Sammy wants that growth plan and matching with the daily priorities. Just going to stop that share, and I'm just going to share. So when we look at the importance of overwhelm, it's so important. So we have a diagnostic that shows you your problems with growing your practice. And the first three are all about leading your practice. And they're all about overwhelm, either getting rid of it or not getting there in the first place. Self-leadership, plans, avoiding getting overwhelmed. And these are often the biggest issues that's stopping us getting on to the next things. So I'm just going to put into the chat box a link so you can do that assessment. You'll find that really, really useful. Let me just pop that in here. Right. So where do we go from here? How do we move this forward? What do we actually need to get done? Let me just go back. Share that. Go to the, I don't want to go to Edian. There we are. How do we get this stuff done? When you've got too many things on your screen. Lost my chat box. Never like losing my chat box. Right. Key thing is you've got to do something here. Nobody's going to come in and save you. Just coming on this webinar, whilst it was brilliant to have you with us, and I always enjoy it, you've got to actually do something different. Only then are you going to make something happen. Until you know your priorities, nothing is going to change. That means growth plan, sticking in those conversations. And that's only then can you then go, right, who do I need to step up because they're causing me problems? Who do I need to have a difficult conversation? So why don't we get this stuff done? First thing is we have no time, do we? We're overwhelmed, we're busy. And I remember, John, you're on this call. If you feel able to, what did it feel like coming and having that first session with me to help you stop that overwhelm and get you to focus on it? And I know if you could put something in the chat box, you feel able to. How did it feel to suddenly go, no, I'm going to get on with this. I'm going to talk to the person that can help. And John said it was a weight off the shoulders. Just taking that small first step, do the assessment, speak to Matt. He'll ask you to do the assessment anyway. Um, Makes a massive, massive difference. John, what have you managed to achieve, by the way, within the 4 months you've been within the club? Just put it in the chat box. And that's purely by stopping, isn't it? And focusing on your priorities. What have you managed to achieve? See what John's going to say. He's now thinking about it. He's going to put it in the chat box. By the way, I didn't line this up to everybody on this call. Didn't line this up. So I'm just kind of going in here and just asking. See what John says. So how do we sort out the time? We get accountability. It's funny, isn't it, Matt, that when you know you've got to be at a meeting with someone and talk about what you've done, you start to get things done, don't you? It's a brilliant hack for making sure the important stuff happens.
Yeah, I mean, I always remember one of my managers once said to me when I was, just for everybody's benefit, I'm a career banker. If you want something to happen, measure it.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was,
absolutely. Now, interesting, John said within the 4 months, he's now more in control. The team members are stepping up, and that's now released him to be able to focus on the areas that he needs to do, such as business development. Absolutely. And that's why, John, you're on the new business accelerator now. Fast on your way to winning more business. And that was the program that Natalie was on last year. And she won over £40,000 in new business as a result. Join the club to get your growth plan implemented. That's where we start with you. Then we add in accountability. You've got clarity about what you need to do. But often we don't need to know where to start. Look, let's go a good way. If you're not ready to talk to Matt, but you want to kind of go, well, where are my issues? This will show you in the 11 categories where your gaps are. You'll get a personalized report, and then you can do something from that. But really, first step is talk to you, Matt, isn't it? Well, Matt's just disappeared. I think he's probably having problems with his cough.
yeah, sorry, I was. No,
Yeah.
definitely. And obviously more than happy to have a discussion because that's what I'm here for. And
Yep.
seeing how we can help. And that's what we love to do. And
Yep.
we want to help as many people as we can.
Absolutely. So if you put your link in to talk to Matt, that's great. Let's stop that share. Hopefully I'm on screen now. Right. I think, Matt, we can go to some questions. I think we've got time for about 3 questions at this rate. Into the chat box. What questions do you have for Matt and myself? So Matt, I'm going to ask you a question. When you're often speaking with potential members of the club, what are the first tips that you give to them or talk them through to stop them getting into this overwhelm? Because when they talk to you, they're normally really overwhelmed.
Yeah. It is that retreat backwards and look at it. It's taking a step backwards from the situation. And I think that's the thing is what you very often find is people become so embedded and overwhelmed in what's happening immediately that they can't see the old phrase, the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
And they literally get into this spiral where they're really great accountants and they're creating more work for themselves and everything else, but it's a capacity issue.
Mm.
And they don't have the plan to deal with that work.
Mm.
The plan is, I want more work, but not how am I going to deal with that more work?
Yeah, absolutely.